Ambassador Valorix walked slowly into the great chamber of the Galactic Council. His 4 eyes moved across the room, looking at the delegates from 17 different star systems. Some were tall and thin like himself. Others were short and covered in scales. A few floated in special tanks filled with liquid because they could not breathe air. All of them had gathered here today to discuss one small planet in a distant corner of the galaxy. The chamber itself was enormous. It had been built 3,000 years ago, when the first species learned to travel between stars. The walls were made of a dark metal that absorbed light, and the ceiling showed a live image of the stars outside. Floating platforms carried each delegate to their assigned position in the circular room. Valorix took his place at the center speaking platform. Behind him, a holographic display flickered to life, showing a small blue planet covered in clouds and water. It orbited a yellow star that the locals called the Sun. The planet was called Earth by its inhabitants, and it was about to become the target of the largest military operation the Krellian Empire had launched in 200 years. Esteemed colleagues, Valorix began. His natural voice was made of clicks and high-pitched whistles that no other species could understand. So a small device on his chest translated his words into the common tongue. I stand before you today to formally register my objection to the proposed military action against the planet designated Salthri. A rumble of conversation moved through the chamber. Several delegates shifted in their seats. The Krellians, who sat in a large section to the right, made sounds of displeasure. High Commander Zithos rose from his seat. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin covered in natural armor plates. His species had evolved on a heavy gravity world, and they were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors. The Krellian Empire had conquered over 40 star systems in the past 1,000 years, and Zithos had personally led many of those campaigns. Your objection is noted, Ambassador, Zithos said. His voice was deep and rumbling like stones grinding together. But the humans have refused our demands. They rejected incorporation into the Empire. They have insulted us with their response. They must be made to understand their place in the galactic order. Valorix did not step back from the larger being. He had served as a diplomat for over 60 years, and he had learned that showing fear only made things worse. High Commander, with the deepest respect, you do not understand what you are proposing. I have studied these humans for many years. I have observed their history, their culture, their behavior. This invasion would be madness. Laughter erupted from the Krellian section. Other delegates joined in, their various sounds of amusement filling the chamber. A young Krellian officer named Morith stepped forward. He was smaller than Zithos, but carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never truly faced danger. Madness? Morith said with a sneer. Ambassador, you speak as if these humans were some great threat. They are a species that has barely achieved interstellar travel. They discovered faster-than-light physics only in the last decade of their time. They still have not built a working drive. They possess no shield technology. Their weapons are primitive chemical propellants and basic nuclear devices. Our fleet will crush them in a matter of days, perhaps hours. More sounds of agreement came from around the chamber. Even some of the neutral delegates seemed to find the idea amusing. Earth was, after all, just one small planet. The Krellian fleet numbered in the thousands. The outcome seemed obvious to everyone present. Everyone except Valorix. That, the ambassador said quietly, is precisely what concerns me. The laughter died down slowly. Something in his tone made the delegates pay attention. Valorix was not known for making jokes or exaggerating. In 6 decades of diplomatic service, he had earned a reputation for careful, measured analysis. Please, Valorix continued, allow me to explain my concerns. I do not dispute the military facts. The humans are technologically inferior. They have no fleet capable of matching ours. Their planetary defenses are basic at best. On paper, this should be a simple operation. Then what is your objection? Zithos demanded. My objection is based on the nature of the species we are preparing to attack. Valorix touched a control on his platform, and the holographic display changed. It now showed images from Earth's history. Soldiers in primitive uniforms charging across muddy fields, cities burning, mushroom clouds rising over destroyed landscapes. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered before. He let the images cycle for a moment before continuing. When my species, the Deshans, first achieved space travel, we celebrated with a festival of peace that lasted an entire year. When the Krellians reached the stars, you established trade routes and began building your empire through commerce before you turned to conquest. When the Marillion Collective developed nuclear technology, they immediately banned its use in warfare and focused on peaceful applications. Valorix paused and looked directly at Zithos. When the humans developed nuclear weapons, they used them on each other within days. They dropped them on their own cities. They killed hundreds of thousands of their own kind in an instant. And then, rather than being horrified by what they had done, they built more. Thousands more. Enough weapons to destroy their entire planet several times over. The chamber had grown very quiet now. For over 70 of their years, Valorix continued. The two most powerful nations on Earth pointed these weapons at each other. Every day, they woke up knowing that their entire civilization could end before sunset. They called this situation mutually assured destruction, and they accepted it as normal. They raised their children under this shadow. They went to work, built families, created art, all while living with the constant possibility of total annihilation. He changed the display again, showing more images. Wars throughout human history. Ancient battles with swords and spears. Medieval sieges. Modern conflicts with tanks and aircraft. This species has been waging war against itself for their entire recorded existence. They have never known a century of peace. They have developed weapons specifically designed to kill each other in increasingly efficient ways. They have survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and self-inflicted catastrophes that would have ended most civilizations. Morith made a dismissive gesture. So they are violent primitives. That only proves they need to be brought under control. They are a danger to themselves and potentially to others. You misunderstand me completely, Valorix said, and now there was something like desperation in his voice. I am not saying they are primitive. I am saying they are dangerous. More dangerous than anything this council has ever faced. When you threaten most species, they look for ways to survive. They calculate the odds, realize they cannot win, and surrender. It is the logical thing to do. He stepped closer to the edge of his platform, his 4 eyes fixed on the Krellian delegation. Humans do not think this way. When you threaten them, when you back them into a corner, they do not calculate odds. They get angry. They get stubborn. They would rather die fighting than live on their knees. Every time in their history, when an enemy thought they were defeated, they found a way to keep fighting. They never give up. Never. The chamber remained silent. Some delegates exchanged uncertain glances. I am begging this council, Valorix said finally, his voice heavy with exhaustion and worry. Do not approve this invasion? Find another way. Negotiate. Offer them a partnership instead of subjugation. Anything but direct military confrontation. Because if you wake these humans up, if you give them a reason to unite against a common enemy, you will face something that the galaxy has never seen before. High Commander Zithos stood silent for a long moment. Then he turned to the assembled delegates. The ambassador speaks from fear, not reason. The invasion will proceed as planned. The humans will learn their place. The vote was taken. The invasion was approved. Valorix bowed his head as he left the chamber. They had not listened. They never listened. And now the galaxy would learn what humans were truly capable of. 3. Standard cycles before Ambassador Valorix made his speech to the Galactic Council. A Krellian scout vessel entered Earth's solar system. It was a small ship, designed for exploration and communication rather than combat. Its crew of 12 had been given a simple mission: deliver the terms of surrender to the primitive species on the third planet and accept their immediate capitulation. Commander Vorthon stood on the bridge of his vessel, watching the blue planet grow larger on his view screen. He had performed this duty many times before, visiting dozens of worlds to inform their inhabitants that they now belonged to the Empire. The process was always the same. The primitives would be confused at first, then frightened when they understood the power they faced. Finally, they would submit. Every species in the galaxy understood basic survival mathematics. When you faced an enemy you could not defeat, you surrendered. Begin the broadcast, Vorthan ordered. Standard incorporation message. All frequencies. The transmission was sent across every communication channel the humans used. Radio waves, satellite signals, internet connections, everything. Within minutes, every screen on Earth displayed the same image. A Krellian officer in full military uniform, standing before the banner of the Empire. People of Earth, the recorded message began, you have been selected for incorporation into the Krellian Empire. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is your new reality. You will immediately surrender all weapons, disband all military forces, and transfer control of your governments to imperial administrators. In exchange, you will be permitted to continue existing as labor units in our mining and manufacturing operations. Any resistance will be met with absolute destruction. You have one planetary rotation to respond. The transmission ended. Commander Vorthan leaned back in his chair and waited. He expected the usual response: panicked messages from terrified leaders, requests for mercy, promises of cooperation. Perhaps some of the more primitive nations would attempt to fight, but they would be quickly eliminated. It's an example to the others. What he received instead was something entirely different. Far below, in a bunker buried deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado, Captain Danny Morrison sat in the United Earth Defense Force Command Center. He was 53 years old, squalid with graying hair and calm brown eyes that had seen too much during his 30 years of military service. Around him, his staff worked at their stations, monitoring the situation as reports flooded in from around the world. Every channel. "Sir," said Lieutenant Katie Hernandez, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. "They hijacked everything. Television, radio, internet, even the emergency broadcast system. The whole world saw it." Morrison nodded slowly. He had watched the message 3 times already. "What do we know about them?" "Very little, sir. The ship appeared at the edge of the solar system about 6 hours ago. It's currently holding position near the moon based on its energy signature and the technology visible in the transmission. They're at least a century ahead of us." "Maybe more? Military capability?" "Unknown, but if that's just a scout ship, we have to assume their main fleet is significantly more powerful." Hernandez paused, her face troubled. "Sir, if they're telling the truth about the Empire, we're facing a civilization that has conquered dozens of worlds. We have exactly 0 warships. Our most advanced space vessel is a modified cargo transport." Morrison stood up and walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of Earth, with markers indicating the locations of every military base, every nuclear weapon, every significant defensive asset the planet possessed. It was not an impressive sight compared to what they apparently faced. "Get me connected to the president," Morrison said, "and every other world leader who's willing to talk. We need to coordinate our response." "What response, sir?" Hernandez asked quietly. "They're giving us 1 day. Even if we wanted to fight, what could we possibly do?" Morrison turned to look at her. There was something in his eyes that she had never seen before. Not fear, not desperation. Something harder. Something older. "Lieutenant, let me tell you a story. Back in 1940, a man named Winston Churchill gave a speech to his country. They were facing an enemy that had conquered most of Europe. An enemy with more soldiers, more tanks, more planes. Every logical analysis said they should surrender. Do you know what Churchill told them?" Hernandez shook her head. He said they would fight on the beaches. They would fight on the landing grounds. They would fight in the fields and in the streets. They would fight in the hills. They would never surrender. Morrison turned back to the screen. The British Empire lasted another few decades after that war. But that speech, that spirit, it's still alive. It's in every human heart. We don't surrender just because the odds are against us. We never have. Over the next several hours, something remarkable happened. Leaders from every nation on Earth joined a single video conference. Old enemies sat beside each other. Countries that had been on the brink of war suddenly found common ground. The petty disputes and ancient hatreds that had divided humanity for thousands of years melted away in the face of this external threat. The President of the United States spoke first. We've all seen the message. We've all heard their demands. The question before us is simple. Do we surrender or do we fight? The Russian president leaned forward. If we fight, we will almost certainly lose. Their technology is far beyond ours. If we surrender, the Chinese premier replied, we lose everything anyway. Our freedom, our dignity, our future. Our children will grow up as slaves to alien masters. There must be a middle ground, someone suggested. Negotiation? Diplomacy? Morrison, who had been invited to attend as a military advisor, spoke up. With respect, I don't think these Krellians are interested in negotiation. They didn't ask for a meeting. They didn't offer terms we could discuss. They gave us an ultimatum. Surrender or die. That's not how you start a diplomatic conversation. That's how you start a war. Silence fell over the conference. So, what do you suggest? The British Prime Minister asked. Morrison thought about his answer carefully. He knew that what he was about to say would change history one way or another. I suggest we show them what humans are made of. We're not the strongest. We're not the most advanced. But we've been fighting against impossible odds since we came down from the trees. We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived each other. Maybe we can't win this war. But we can make them bleed for every inch of ground. We can make them remember Earth. We can make sure that the next time they think about conquering a planet, they hesitate. The vote was taken. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth agreed on something. They would not surrender. The response was drafted carefully. It needed to be clear, direct, and unmistakable. In the end, they settled on just 2 words. When Commander Vorthon received the human transmission, he stared at his screen in confusion. The translation software had to be malfunctioning. No species had ever responded this way to an imperial ultimatum. Come try. He read it again and again. Then he ordered his ship to retreat to a safe distance while he reported this. Development to the High Command in the bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Captain Morrison watched the alien vessel move away from Earth. He knew this was only the beginning. The real fleet would come soon. But for the first time in his life, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Pride. Pure. Simple, human pride. They had chosen to fight. Whatever came next, at least they would face it standing up. After the Council approved the invasion, Ambassador Valorix did not return to his quarters. Instead, he went to the great library of the station, a vast collection of knowledge gathered from thousands of worlds over millions of years. He had spent countless hours here, studying the histories of different species, trying to understand what made civilizations rise and fall. Now he sat alone at a reading station, surrounded by holographic displays showing everything the Galactic Council had collected about Earth and its inhabitants. The more he read, the more worried he became. The door behind him opened, and High Commander Zithos stepped into the room. His heavy footsteps echoed on the metal floor as he approached the ambassador's station. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. You truly believe we are making a mistake, Zithos finally said. It was not a question. Valorix turned to face him. I believe we are about to start a war that will change the galaxy forever, and not in the way you expect. Zithos pulled up a seat designed for smaller species, and somehow managed to fit his massive frame onto it. Explain. You spoke in the council chamber, but you were nervous, rushed. Speak to me now, as one professional to another. Why are you so afraid of these humans? Valorix considered the question carefully. He had known Zithos for many years. Despite his reputation as a conqueror, the High Commander was not stupid. He was a strategic thinker who valued information. Perhaps in private, away from the political pressures of the Council, he might actually listen. Let me show you something, Valorix said. He adjusted the holographic display to show a map of Earth from approximately 500 of the planets years ago. This is what their world looked like before their age of exploration. Dozens of separate civilizations, each with their own languages, cultures, and beliefs. They had been fighting each other for thousands of years already. Similar to many developing worlds, Zithos observed. But watch what happens next. Valorix accelerated the timeline. The map changed rapidly, showing the rise and fall of empires, the spread of technology, the constant shifting of borders. In just 5 centuries, they went from sailing ships to spacecraft, from swords to nuclear weapons, from isolated tribes to a connected global civilization. Impressive speed of development is more than impressive. It is unprecedented. Valorix pulled up comparison data. The average species takes between 2,000 and 5,000 years to make a similar technological journey. The Krellians took 3,000 years. My own species took almost 4,000. The humans did it in 500. Zithos leaned forward, his interest clearly growing. How? Competition. Constant, relentless competition. Every time one group developed a new technology, their rivals had to develop something better or be conquered. It created a cycle of innovation that never stopped. They did not have the luxury of slow, peaceful development. They had to keep advancing or die. The ambassador changed the display again, showing detailed records of human warfare. They have a concept they call total war. When pushed to their limits, they do not fight with just their armies. They fight with everything. Their factories, their scientists, their civilians. Their entire civilization becomes a weapon. He highlighted a particular conflict. This was their Second World War. It lasted 6 of their years. Before it began, they were still using propeller-driven aircraft and basic radio communications. By the end, they had jet engines, computers, radar, rockets, and nuclear weapons. 6 years. They made a century of technological progress in 6 years because they had to, because losing was not an option. Zithos was silent for a long moment, processing this information. You are saying that our invasion will force them to accelerate again? I am saying that our invasion will do something far worse. It will unite them. Valorix's voice was heavy with concern. Right now, they are divided. They waste enormous resources fighting each other. But give them a common enemy, an external threat that endangers all of them equally, and they will put aside their differences. Every factory, every scientist, every soldier on that planet will focus on one goal: defeating us. They cannot defeat us. Our fleet is invincible. Your fleet is powerful, Valorix corrected. No fleet is invincible. And you are underestimating what these humans can accomplish when they are motivated. He pulled up another image, showing a primitive spacecraft landing on Earth's moon. They achieved this with technology barely more advanced than burning liquid fuel. Their computers had less processing power than a child's toy. But they did it anyway, simply because they decided to. They set a goal, and they made it happen through sheer determination. The ambassador stood up and walked to a window that looked out at the stars. I have studied many species, High Commander. Some are stronger than humans. Some are smarter. Some are more advanced. But I have never encountered a species with their particular combination of traits. They are violent, yes. They are primitive by our standards. But they are also creative, adaptable, and absolutely relentless. They do not know how to quit. Everyone knows how to quit when the pain becomes great enough, Zithos said. Valorix turned back to face him. Do they? Let me tell you about a battle from human history. The city was called Stalingrad. 2 of their nations fought over it for months. The defenders were outnumbered, outgunned, running out of food and ammunition. Every logical analysis said they should retreat, save their remaining forces, and fight another day. Instead, they stayed. They fought from building to building, room to room. When they ran out of bullets, they fought with knives. When they ran out of knives, they fought with their hands. They lost over 1 million soldiers defending that one city, and they won. He let that sink in before continuing. There are thousands of such stories in human history. Times when they should have surrendered but did not. Times when they should have died but survived. They have a word for it: stubborn. I believe it may be their defining characteristic. Zithos stood up slowly, his expression thoughtful. You make a compelling argument, Ambassador, but the Council has voted. The invasion will proceed. What would you have me do? Be careful. Be prepared for the unexpected. And whatever you do, do not give them time. If this invasion drags on, if it becomes a long war, they will adapt. They will learn. They will study your technology and find ways to copy it or counter it. Speed is your only advantage. The operation is planned to last 2 weeks at most. Valorix shook his head sadly. You have not been listening. They will not let it end that quickly. They will make you fight for every city, every village, every patch of ground. They will hide in mountains and forests. They will attack your supply lines. They will never stop fighting, even after their governments fall, even after their armies are destroyed. Individual humans will continue resisting until their last breath. He gathered his materials and prepared to leave. I have done what I can. I have warned you. I have presented the evidence. If the Council chooses to ignore me, then the consequences are on their conscience. And if we succeed? Zithos asked. If the invasion goes as planned and the humans submit, Valorix paused at the door. Then I will admit I was wrong. I will personally apologize to this council for wasting their time with unnecessary concerns. He turned to look at the High Commander one final time. But I do not believe that will happen. I believe that when this is over, the galaxy will be a very different place. And I believe the Krellian Empire will regret ever learning that humans existed. He walked out of the library, leaving Zithos alone with the holographic displays still showing scenes from human history. The High Commander studied them for a long time before finally turning them off. 2 days later, the invasion fleet launched. 400 warships, carrying over 1 million soldiers, headed toward a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. The Krellian Third Fleet entered Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, watching the tactical display as his 400 warships moved into formation. Behind him, his officers worked efficiently at their stations, tracking the fleet's progress and monitoring for any signs of resistance. Disreport, Korath ordered. All ships in position, Admiral. We are detecting minimal defensive installations in the outer system. Several primitive satellites around the fourth planet, some activity in the asteroid belt. Nothing that poses a threat. Korath nodded with satisfaction. This would be another routine conquest. The humans had been given their chance to surrender, and they had chosen defiance. Now they would learn the cost of that choice. Begin the advance. Standard formation. I want the planet secured within 2 weeks. The fleet moved forward, hundreds of massive warships gliding through the darkness of space. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a city. Together, they represented the greatest concentration of military power the Krellian Empire had deployed in 2 centuries. Against this force, humans had nothing. Or so the Admiral believed. The first sign of trouble came when 3 destroyers at the edge. The formation suddenly vanished from sensors. One moment they were there, transmitting normal telemetry. The next moment, they were gone. What happened? Korath demanded his officers check their instruments with growing confusion. Unknown, Admiral. There was a brief energy spike in their location, then nothing. No debris, no distress signals, no escape pods. Sensor malfunction? Possible, but unlikely. The readings were consistent across multiple ships. Korath frowned. This was unexpected, but not alarming. Equipment failures happened even in the Imperial fleet. Continue the advance. Send scout ships to investigate. The scout ships found the answer quickly enough. The destroyers had not experienced equipment failures. They had flown into a minefield. The humans had seeded the outer solar system with nuclear devices carefully hidden among the asteroids and debris. The explosions had been so powerful that nothing remained of the destroyed ships. Primitive but effective, Korath admitted. Adjust our course to avoid the asteroid belt. We will approach the planet from a different angle. But the asteroid belt was only the beginning, far away. In a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Danny Morrison watched the same tactical display, tracking the enemy fleet's movements through a network of hidden sensors. He had been promoted twice since first contact, jumping from captain to general as humanity scrambled to organize its defenses. Around him, officers from a dozen different nations worked together, sharing information and coordinating their efforts. "They're adjusting course," reported Lieutenant Colonel Nina Walsh, a woman with red hair and sharp green eyes who had become Morrison's most trusted aide. "Looks like they found our welcome presence in the asteroid belt." "How many did we get?" Morrison asked. "3 confirmed kills, possibly 2 more damaged." Morrison allowed himself a small smile. 3 enemy ships destroyed before the battle had even properly begun. It was not much against a fleet of 400, but it was something. Every ship they eliminated was one less raining fire down on Earth. "What about Mars?" "Battery is charged and ready, sir." "They're waiting for your order." The Mars battery was humanity's secret weapon. Over the past 3 cycles, engineers and scientists from every spacefaring nation had worked together to build a massive railgun on the red planet's surface. It could accelerate a metal projectile to nearly 1% of the speed of light. At that velocity, even a small piece of metal carried the energy of a nuclear bomb. "Wait until they're closer," Morrison ordered. "We only get a few shots before they realize where it's coming from and destroy it. Make each one count." The fleet continued its approach, now moving more cautiously. Admiral Korath ordered his ships to spread out, making them harder targets for any more hidden mines. He also increased sensor sweeps, looking for additional traps. He found the moon, based the hard way. When the fleet passed within range of Earth's natural satellite, railgun batteries hidden in craters on the far side opened fire. 12 ships were hit in the first volley. 6 were destroyed outright. The others were badly damaged, their shields overwhelmed by the sheer kinetic energy of the impacts. "Turn fire," Korath roared. "Destroy those installations." The Krellian ships turned their weapons on the moon, pounding the surface with plasma cannons and nuclear missiles. The hum and batteries were silenced within minutes, but the damage was done. The fleet had lost 15 ships before even reaching Earth, and still the humans fought. As the fleet entered orbit around Earth, Morrison gave the order to fire the Mars battery. The projectile crossed the distance between the planets in minutes, invisible to sensors, until it was too late. It struck the Krellian flagship's shield at an angle, not penetrating completely, but causing massive damage. Secondary explosions rippled through the great ship as systems overloaded. Admiral Korath survived, but his flagship was crippled. He transferred his command to another vessel and ordered the Mars installation destroyed. A squadron of ships broke off from the main fleet and reduced the battery to rubble. "They cannot have many more surprises," Korath said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Begin the landing operations." The ground invasion began on a Wednesday. Krellian troops, equipped with advanced armor and energy weapons, descended on major cities across the planet. They expected to face demoralized defenders, civilians ready to submit to their new masters. They found something else entirely. The humans had used the time, since first contact, wisely. Every factory that could be converted to military production had been converted. Every man and woman capable of holding a weapon had been armed. Every building in every city had been turned into a fortress. In New York, Krellian soldiers advanced down empty streets, their sensors showing no enemy contacts. Then the buildings exploded. Not from bombs, but from thousands of humans who had been hiding inside, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. They came from windows, from rooftops, from underground tunnels. They fought with everything they had, rifles and grenades and improvised weapons. The Krellians had better equipment. They had shields and plasma rifles and air support, but the humans did not care. When one fell, another took their place. When they ran out of ammunition, they threw rocks. When they were surrounded, they detonated explosives strapped to their own bodies. Taking as many enemies as they could, similar scenes played out across the planet. In Moscow, civilian volunteers held a bridge for 3 days against overwhelming odds. In Beijing, factory workers converted their machines into weapons and fought beside trained soldiers. In London, the elderly and the young formed militia units, refusing to evacuate despite repeated orders. General Morrison coordinated the defense from his bunker. Watching reports come in from every continent, the casualties were staggering. Millions dead in the first week alone, cities burning. infrastructure collapsing. By any objective measure, they were losing, but they were also bleeding the enemy. Current estimates, Walsh reported, her voice hoarse from exhaustion, show enemy casualties at approximately 40% of their ground forces. They've lost another 60 ships to surface 2 space missiles and sabotage. Admiral Korath has requested reinforcements. Morrison looked at the numbers. 40% casualties. 60 ships in 2 weeks. Humanity had inflicted more damage on the Krellian military than any enemy in their recorded history. It was not enough. The humans were dying faster than the invaders. Eventually, the numbers would tell. Eventually, resistance would become impossible, but not today. Today, they kept fighting. In a small town in Kansas, a man named Luke Harrison stood in front of his farm with a hunting rifle, watching Krellian troop transports descend from the sky. He was 72 years old. His wife had died 3 years ago. His children had evacuated to the mountains with his grandchildren. He could have run. He could have hidden. Instead, he chambered around and waited. The first Krellian soldier to step off the transport died with a bullet through its eye slit. The second died a moment later. Luke Harrison killed 7 more before they finally brought him down. He was one of millions. Ordinary humans who chose to fight rather than submit. Who decided that their freedom was worth more than their lives? Who refused to let their planet be taken without a cost. The Krellians had expected the campaign to last 2 weeks. By the end of the first month, they were beginning to wonder if it would ever end. 6 standard cycles after the invasion began, Ambassador Valorix stood once again before the Galactic Council. The chamber felt different now, emptier, quieter. Several seats that had been filled during his last speech were now vacant. The Krellian section, once proud and confident, seemed somehow smaller. High Commander Zithos was not present. He had died 3 weeks into the campaign, when human resistance fighters detonated a captured nuclear device beneath his temporary headquarters. The explosion had killed him along with most of his senior staff. Esteemed colleagues, Valorix began, his voice heavy with exhaustion. He had not slept properly since the invasion started. I come before you today to deliver my final report on the Earth campaign. He activated the holographic display. The numbers that appeared made several delegates gasp. The Krellian Third Fleet has been effectively destroyed. Of 400 warships that entered the Sol system, 17 have returned. The rest were lost to enemy action, captured or destroyed by their own crews to prevent capture. Admiral Korath is dead. He was killed during a human boarding action on his second flagship, 3 weeks after transferring from the Dominion. Valorix changed the display to show casualty figures. Ground forces suffered 94% casualties. Of the 1 million soldiers deployed, approximately 60,000 survived to be evacuated. The remaining forces were either killed in combat or are still fighting on the planet's surface. Unable to be extracted, the chamber was completely silent. The humans suffered tremendous casualties as well, Valorix continued. Current estimates suggest they lost approximately 200 million of their population. Many of their major cities have been destroyed. Their infrastructure is devastated. By most measures, they have suffered a catastrophic defeat. He paused, letting the silence stretch. And yet they are already rebuilding. Within hours of the last Krellian ship leaving orbit, they began repairing their factories, reorganizing their governments, and caring for their wounded. They have captured significant quantities of Krellian technology from downed ships and surrendered soldiers. Their scientists are reverse engineering everything they can find. A new image appeared on the display, a human research facility, working around the clock despite the destruction surrounding it. Based on the progress they have already made, human analysts estimate they will have functional shield technology within 1 year. Faster than light capability within 5. Weapons matching our current level within 10. Delegate Morith, who had survived by virtue of never leaving the council station, spoke up with a trembling voice. Surely they will want peace now. After losing so many of their people, surely they will negotiate. We can offer them favorable terms, reparations, technology sharing. Whatever they want. Valorix turned to look at him. There was no anger in his expression, only a deep, profound sadness. I have received a transmission from their government. They have formed a unified planetary council, combining all their previous nations into a single political entity. General Morrison has been appointed as their supreme military commander. He asked me to deliver a message to this body. The ambassador activated the final display. A human face appeared on the screen. It belonged to Danny Morrison, though he looked very different from the man who had first received the Krellian ultimatum. His hair had gone completely white. Deep lines marked his face. A scar ran from his forehead to his jaw, a reminder of the day his bunker had been hit by orbital bombardment. He had survived by being in a different section at the time. 30 of his staff had not been so lucky. But his eyes were the most striking change. They burned with something that made even the most hardened delegates uncomfortable to look at directly. "This is General Daniel Morrison of the United Earth Government." The recording began. His voice was calm, steady, almost quiet. "I am speaking to the Galactic Council on behalf of the human race." He paused, and when he continued, every word carried W. 8. You came to our home. You demanded our surrender. You killed our people, our children, our families, our friends. You burned our cities. You poisoned our land. You tried to make us slaves. His expression did not change. There was no anger visible on his face, only determination. "We have decided that this will never happen again, not to us, not to anyone else in this galaxy who wishes to live free." The camera pulled back slightly, revealing that Morrison was standing in a command center. Behind him, dozens of officers worked at stations, coordinating operations across the planet. "You have taught us that the universe is dangerous. We have learned that lesson well. For thousands of years, we fought each other. We wasted our strength on petty conflicts and meaningless wars. Those days are over. We are one people now. One planet. One purpose." He leaned slightly toward the camera.
"Now we're coming."
The words hung in the air. "Not today. Not tomorrow. But soon. We are building ships. We are training soldiers. We are developing weapons. And when we are ready, we will find the worlds that sent this fleet against us. We will find every species that voted for our destruction. And we will ensure that they never threaten anyone again." Morrison straightened his posture. "To those civilizations that oppose this invasion, we offer friendship. We offer trade. We offer alliance. We believe there are species in this galaxy who want peace, who want to coexist, who want to build rather than destroy. We look forward to meeting you." His voice hardened. "To those who attacked us, we offer nothing. No negotiations, no treaties, no mercy. You showed us none, and you will receive none in return. Prepare your defenses. Strengthen your fleets. Pray to whatever gods you worship. It will not save you." The recording ended. The chamber sat in stunned silence. No one seemed to know what to say. A species that had barely achieved spaceflight had just declared war on the Krellian Empire and anyone who had supported them. It was madness. It was impossible. It was exactly what Ambassador Valorix had warned them about. Morith finally found his voice. "They cannot be serious. They have just lost 200 million people. They have no fleet, no resources, no experience in interstellar warfare. This is empty bluster, nothing more." Valorix gathered his documents and prepared to leave. As he passed Morith's seat, he paused and looked down at the delegate who had laughed at his warnings. "I warned you," he said quietly. "I told you it was madness to invade Earth. I explained what humans were capable of. You did not listen. None of you listened." "The ambassador speaks from fear," Morith said, echoing the words Zithos had used before the invasion. "I speak from knowledge," Valorix replied. "The humans have a saying that I believe applies here. They told it to me when I first began studying their culture, and I did not understand it at the time. Now I do." "What saying?" Valorix's translator rendered the words perfectly. "Do not wake a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." He walked toward the exit, then stopped and turned back one final time. "You woke them. You filled them with resolve. And now you will face the consequences. The humans will come. Maybe not in your lifetime, Morith. Maybe not in your children's lifetime. but they will come. They never forget. They never forgive. And they never, ever stop. He walked out of the chamber without looking back. The doors closed behind him, somewhere in the galaxy. On a small blue planet, still scarred from war, the humans were building their first true warship. They had named it Defiance. It was crude by galactic standards, a patchwork of human engineering and captured alien technology. But it worked. General Morrison stood on the observation deck, watching the ship take shape in the orbital construction yard. Around him, thousands of workers labored day and night. Driven by a purpose that transcended individual concerns, Lieutenant Colonel Walsh approached with a tablet. The Council has formally requested peace talks. They're offering to recognize Earth as an independent world, provide technology assistance, and pay reparations. Morrison did not look away from the window. Denied. Sir, with respect, they're offering us everything we could have asked for before the invasion. Before the invasion, we might have accepted. Morrison finally turned to face her. Before they killed 200 million of our people. Before they tried to make slaves of us. Now we want something else. What do we want? Morrison looked back at the ship being built. We want them to be afraid. We want every species in this galaxy to know that Earth is not to be touched. We want them to tell stories about us to their children. We want to be the nightmare that keeps them awake at night. He placed his hand on the window. And then, when they truly understand what they awakened, maybe then we will talk about peace. The Defiance would not be their last ship. It would not even be their 10th. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same.